predict the future, but to change the future.
Wells himself had to struggle to stay optimistic as he saw some of his nightmare predictions come true. The bomb in particular pushed him toward despair. Near the end of his life, he was asked by a friend what he wanted as an epitaph. Wells replied, "Damn you all, I told you so." Of course he did. Wells had been telling the world about the future since he dreamed up his time machine 100 years ago. It's an odd fact that one of H.G. Wells' earliest books was about a time machine, and so many of the things he wrote about later on seemingly came true. So why are we so skeptical about a time machine? The story of time travel reads like a fable. A tale of desperate wartime experiments may be linked to a death in a lonely park in the year 1959. The secrets now known as the Philadelphia experiment were almost lost forever with the alleged suicide of one Dr. Morris K. Jessup. Author Preston Nichols.
It's really questionable whether or not Morris Jessup committed suicide or was killed, but apparently there are reports that there was two very well-dressed gentlemen seen walking away from the car early in the morning.
Just days before his untimely death, Dr. Jessup had reportedly received a series of cryptic letters written by a retired merchant marine named Carlos Allende.
Carlos Allende was a merchant marine in the Philadelphia harbor when the Philadelphia experiment was tried.
In his anguished notes, Allende spoke of some terrible experiment he'd witnessed on a ship named the USS Eldridge, back during the dark days of the Second World War. Author Andrew Strom.
What the men on the Eldridge experienced is nothing like anybody has ever experienced. Nothing. Because death, I assure you, would have been easier to live through.
Back in the early 40s, as World War II raged across the lands and seas, desperate times called for desperate action. Author Al Ewing.
We were in the middle of World War II, and the German U-boat fleet was having a field day, sinking 50% of the shipping going across the Atlantic at that time. And the hope was that by making the ships invisible, both the maritime ships and the Navy ships, they could defeat the German radar and they would not be able to find a target to torpedo.
Allegedly, the ill-fated Philadelphia experiment was the U.S. Navy's first attempt at stealth technology, making a ship invisible to radar.
So this is what they were trying to do, and this is what they did do. They succeeded in it in terms of the actual hardware. The ship became invisible, but the personnel couldn't take the effects. And the effects were unbelievable, phenomenal, and totally unexpected.
Reportedly, the initial research that led up to the disastrous experiment in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in 1943 was conducted years earlier by the famed scientists Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla, back in the 30s, became involved with a group that was experimenting with the ability to move through the time-space continuum.
The experiment started back in Princeton University at about 1939-38. And as they got the thing developed to where they could make something small invisible, then they got it to an object maybe that big. And that gathered the attention of the government.
The military, because we are at war, wanted to pursue it in their direction, of course. So Tesla had finally come to the same conclusion that Einstein did, which was that this technology, if developed, would not be used for the benefit of mankind.
As the story is told, the war raged on and the military needed answers fast. So a full-scale ship was outfitted electronically and a test was scheduled.
In 1943, we conducted a dry run. We had the use of domestic animals, dogs, cats, and we placed them in different metalled cages along through the ship, the USS Eldridge.
They threw the switches. At that point, electric fields and magnetic fields were generated on a wholesale basis to get astronomical amounts of energy.
Reportedly, after the power was shut down, sailors boarded the USS Eldridge to find the experiment had run into trouble.
There was a lot of problems with the animals. Radiation burns, and many of them were missing.
Despite the setbacks, it's claimed the Navy's response to the first trial run was full speed ahead. So on August the 12th, 1943, the USS Eldridge, with a full crew aboard, reportedly underwent the Philadelphia experiment. On the ship, the day may have begun as any other, with the crew attending to routine duties, but the countdown had started. The Eldridge was about to become a legend.
They fired this thing up, they got the generators going. When they threw the switches, that's when all the bizarre stuff started to happen.
We turned it on, and of course, the ship became radar invisible within a short period of time. And to those who were observers on the carrier, as well as a commercial ship known as the SS Friaseth, a merchant ship, it appeared like the tests were going according to plan. But something went wrong at the last minute, and all of a sudden there was a flash of blue light, and the ship disappeared completely and was gone from the harbor for about 4 hours.
Instead of merely becoming invisible to radar or even the naked eye, legend has it the Eldridge was actually transported through space and time.
We shot it through the time-space continuum. We arced it through.
It literally took off. I don't mean flying. I meant it just plain disappeared into hyperspace. It was there approximately 4 hours and then returned to the place where it had been originally.
Allegedly, a boarding party was dispatched to the Eldridge because something appeared terribly wrong.
There was a greenish sort of haze on deck, not very heavy, sort of like clouds in a way. The personnel were milling around. They were very sick and ill and quite insane.
And some of them had heart attacks. These were young men. But it was that bad.
Some of them were on fire. Some of them looked dead. Some of them were actually part of the superstructure of the ship. Literally stuck in the wall.
There were people buried in the deck, in the bulkhead. Their bodies were enmeshed with the steel of the deck. And some just literally walked into nothing, according to some of the reports. And they never were seen again.
The questions linger. Where did the USS Eldridge go when it apparently vanished for 4 hours? Some theories placed it in Norfolk Harbor, 275 miles away, while even more incredible claims suggest that it voyaged 40 years into the future. And what about the missing sailors? One account points to a mysterious incident at a local bar.
A group of sailors, according to the story, boiled out of a back room of the bar. A little research showed the fact that this bar had no back room. They came out of the wall. There was some connection between the Philadelphia experiment, what happened in that bar.
Officially, the Navy denied everything.
They denied that there ever was such an experiment because of the complications involving what happened to these personnel. They couldn't explain it properly. Those died, they said, were lost at sea.
Some believe there's an even more compelling reason that the Philadelphia experiment was kept under wraps. The project was a success. They supposedly built a time machine.
They do not want the public to know they've had access to time travel for over 40 years.
They have the technology today to move back and forth through the time continuum, both past and future. Yes, we can time travel today.
Some contend that time machines are being clandestinely used to forecast our future.
They're taking no chances. The government has been able to view in the future what is going to come down. Now, whether it comes down exactly the way they've seen it, or with some variation, they know there's going to be serious trouble. But they know in general that the future is not cast in stone. It is changeable. It's anybody's guess what may happen.
The events of 1943 are fading into the past. What horrors did the young merchant marine Carlos Allende witness that were to shadow him into old age? And what was in those cryptic letters he sent to Dr. Morris K. Jessup? Did the doctor die because he knew too much? Did he take the secret of the USS Eldridge to his grave? After 50 years, the Philadelphia experiment has become shrouded in mystery and legend. So, did the USS Eldridge suddenly disappear? Did it fly forward in time? Did it reappear hundreds of miles away? Naturally, the United States Navy dismissed the incident as a wild and crazy myth. They insisted time travel was impossible. They still do. But is it?